Welcome to the Student Leadership Challenge Experience. I'm Joe Urbanski with Collegiate Empowerment, and you are probably wondering, is this going to be worth my time? Yes, and it has to be, because we're going to do this 5 times. But how do I really know it's going to be worth your time? Because we at Collegiate Empowerment have been around for quite some time. We've been around for 20 years. We've worked with 1.8 million college students. That's quite a lot of students. So we know what you want, we know what you need as it relates to something just like this. So as we jump here into the Student Leadership Challenge Experience, let's all remember that leadership is about creating energy. It's about energizing people. It's about mobilizing people. It's about getting people to take action. It's about getting people to a place where they've not yet been. And it is a struggle. That's why we call it a challenge. So let's make the commitment right now that we're going to have a little bit of fun, we're going to learn a few things, and we're going to take some action, we're going to apply it, we're going to feel empowered so that we can have a great experience as we go through the Leadership Challenge. So let's do this! Let's start with a little introduction. This is James Kouzis and Barry Posner, and they have been researching leadership development for 30 plus years. You'd think they know a little bit about leadership development, and they do. But what's really interesting is in all of this time, they've still only found 5 practices of leadership development. Just 5. You'd think in 30 years that maybe they'd find something different. After selling 2 million copies of books and doing 75,000 interviews, you'd think that they'd learn something more than just the 5 practices, but it keeps coming back to those 5 practices, and it keeps coming back to one single definition of leadership, and that is this. Leadership is the art of mobilizing others to want to struggle for shared aspirations. Now let's break that down a little bit. Leadership is an art, right? You can have an accident happen outside your window right now and 50 different people see it, and 50 different people are going to have 50 different reactions to that. You can take a look at actual art on the wall, and you could have a different feeling as opposed to 7 or 8 other people all having their own unique feelings and unique responses to it. Leadership is an art, and it is about mobilizing others. It's about taking people to a place they haven't yet been. To want to struggle? What do you mean struggle? Leadership is a struggle. Name any leader right now, I guarantee you what they've gone through wasn't easy. Whether it was Martin Luther King Jr., Mother Teresa, JFK, Malcolm X, Christopher Reeve, the current president Barack Obama, it doesn't matter who it is. It was a struggle. It isn't easy. Getting people to a place they haven't yet been isn't easy. Struggle for shared aspirations. That means we come together for something in common, for common goals, common values, something that we're all moving towards together. So leadership is the art of mobilizing others to want to struggle, not just to struggle, but to want to go through it, to want to struggle for shared aspirations. And within that definition, there are these 5 practices of exemplary leadership. And so here's each of them. The first one is model the way. So do this with me. I know, play around in a little bit. You might be in the library and there's people watching you. You might be in the privacy of your own room or in a car. Hopefully you're not driving, but wherever you are, let's do this. So put your hands together like this and say, model the way. This is how we're going to remember it easier. Say, model the way. That is the first practice. The second one is inspire a shared vision. So imagine you're looking out for where we're going to go. So we model the way, inspire a shared vision, and then grab your hammer and challenge the process. That's the third practice, is challenge the process. Practice number 4 is enable others to act. So imagine you're giving them a little nudge, you're giving a little shove, a gentle, encouraging shove. And you're not tapping them on the hiney, but a little bit higher than the hiney. You're giving them a little nudge to enable them to act. And the 5th practice is encourage the heart. So we make this little heart here. I know, a little cheesy, but this is how we'll remember it. And if you're doing this with me, we encourage the heart. So these are the 5 practices. Quick recap. Model the way. We model the way. Inspire a shared vision. Challenge the process. Enable others to act. And encourage the heart. I can remember it just by going through the motions. So I'm going to ask that you do the same thing, right? Now within each of the 5 practices, there are certain commitments and behaviors to help us practice. So we've got 5 practices. There are 10 commitments. Each practice has 2 commitments that are attached to it. And we'll go through some of these through the videos. And each of the commitments is tied to certain behaviors. So each practice and each set of commitments is tied to 6 behaviors for a total of 30 leadership behaviors that over 30 plus years, it's just a coincidence, over 30 plus years, there are 30 behaviors that are tied to leading others to a place they haven't yet been, getting others to mobilize, to energize for shared aspirations. So really, let's dive in. The Student Leadership Challenge experience and the 5 practices is about your personal best. So I want you to think about your personal best. Any personal best leadership experience. It could have been 15 years ago. It could have been 5 years ago. It could have been 5 weeks ago. Think now for a moment where you were with a group of people that you led for shared aspirations, to a common vision, a common goal, something amazing. It doesn't have to be big, it just has to be great. Think about your personal best leadership experience right now. What was that like for you? What was it all about? I want you to use that experience as we go through these 5 videos to take a look at the context, not just the content. The content's easy. There's content everywhere. You can Google it everywhere. But the context of let's frame these 5 practices around your personal best leadership experience. And the first practice here is model the way. So let's dive in. What does model the way really mean? Here are the 2 commitments of model the way. Clarify values by finding your voice and affirming shared values. And set the example by aligning, I'm not a reader. Set the example by aligning actions with shared values. Now, if we continue to break it down, clarify values. Values answer the question, what's most important to you? So you might say family, you might say energy, you might say health and fitness, you might say money, you might say love, you might say learning, whatever it is. Values are what's most important to you. So clarify values by finding your voice and affirming shared values. So once you figure out what's important to you, then we connect it to what's important to others. And we listen to their voice as well. Then commitment number 2 is set the example by aligning your actions, now following through. Basically, do what you say you're going to do. Don't try to do it, but actually do it. Right? As if I'm having a party. Let's say I'm having a party this weekend and I invite you to show up and you say, yeah, I'll try to be there. Are you coming? No. And anytime we say we're going to try to do something, it really means nothing. Think about it. Try to pick up your pen or pencil or your phone or whatever's in front of you right now. Try to pick it up. Now keep in mind, I didn't say pick it up, and I didn't say don't pick it up. Is there any state of trying? You either pick it up or you don't. There's no try. So this is something that we have to do. Do what you say you will do. That's what the commitments are for modeling the way. Now, credibility plus vision equals leadership, right? We're looking at the Student Leadership Challenge experience. Credibility is when you do what you say you're going to do, right? When you say, I promise I'm going to do this, and you follow through, people think you're credible. Now, the vision part, that's kind of practice number 2, and we'll get into it. But the vision is about doing what you say you're going to do on the way to something bigger, shared values, shared aspirations, shared vision, shared dreams. And we bring people to that place because that's what leadership is all about. So really, let's take a look at some of those values. Values are what's important to us. So again, it could be anything. It could be family time. It could be friends. It could be relationships. It could be significant other or others. I'm not here to judge. It could be your health and fitness. It could be making a lot of money. It could be certain achievements. Values are what's most important to us, and they drive all of our behavior. Your values drive your beliefs. Now, your beliefs are kind of what you think about, these convictions, what you hold true to yourself. So for example, if you said, my value is health and fitness, so I believe that I must work out and eat right to maintain that health and fitness level, my value, right? So based on that belief, now you make certain commitments. That commitment is, I'm going to exercise Monday, Wednesday, Friday at 8 a.m. or whatever, 6 p.m., 7 p.m., consistently every day, and I'm going to eat certain things, and I'm only going to have junk food 1 day a week, and it's going to be ice cream, and it's going to be a gallon. It's going to be a lot, right? But we make certain commitments based on the beliefs that we have, and those commitments lead us to having rules as well. So the commitments we have for ourselves, but the rules is how we interact with other people. right? You have rules. People break our rules all the time. Now, if you say, I'm going to work out, I'm committing to doing this, and somebody calls you and says, hey, would you like to go to breakfast with me? Now they're kind of breaking your rule, right? Because your commitment is, I'm going to work out at 8 a.m. and they're saying, would you like to go to breakfast? Now you can break that rule for yourself, or you can have them break it for you. Or you hold your commitment, do what you say you're going to do, have the credibility and say, I'm sorry, I'm working out today, let's do breakfast tomorrow, right? We have rules for how other people interact with us, don't we? When you're driving on the road, somebody goes, "Arr!" and they pull right in front of you. You got a little road rage maybe going on, right? That's a rule that we have for how others interact with us and our values. So our values drive our beliefs drive our commitments drive our rules, and all of these together drive our habits. So maybe you've got a habit of going to the gym and exercising and running and working out, or you wake up and you do your push-ups and sit-ups first thing in the morning, whatever it might be, right? These are the habits, and habits ultimately define who you are, who you're becoming, and what you're going to give back to the world. Everything that we do is habitual. Think about it. When you wake up first thing in the morning, what do? Snooze, maybe, right? First thing, you hit the snooze button, right? And then you walk like a zombie into the bathroom, and you wash your face, and you get ready, and you do the same thing that you did yesterday, and the day before, and the day before that, and the day before that, and the weeks before that. It's so habitual. We're creatures of habit. But in order to have good habits, we've got to start with those values. So let's start with those values. I want you to choose your top 3 values right now. I'm going to put a couple of values on the screen. I'm going to give you a moment, and I want you to take that moment now to choose at least 3 values, 3 things that are important to you at this stage of your life. They could change next week. You might not have family or children as a value because you don't have children right now, or maybe you do, and that's a new value of yours. So take a look here. Is it achievement, beauty? Do you love challenge? What's important to you in your life at this stage of the game? Is it honesty? Is it your health, as we've been talking about? Is it patience, spirituality? It could be anything. I'll give you a moment here. Think, what are your top 3 values right now? As I stare at you awkwardly. Just kidding. What's important to you? When you know what's important to you, then you can define habits. They're going to lead you in that direction. All right, you've probably got 2 or 3 by now. Maybe you got 4 or 5, and that's totally okay too. There's a lot of things that are important to us, but think about this. If you're saying, well, I like all of these are important to me, well, then nothing's important to you. The whole idea is what's most important means it's more important than everything else. So what are your top 3? Narrow it down. If you're writing these down, circle the top 3 if you already wrote 5. But choose 3. Now you've got those 3, right? Now what do we do with those? We live our life in a way that's congruent with our values. So if you say, health is my value, then the exercise, the kind of example that I went through before, that works for you, right? If you say decisiveness is your value, and I am asking you to choose your top 3 values, and you're like, I don't know which my top 3 are, then let's start deciding. And just choose anything, and you'll see if it works for you over the next week or 2, right? If you say trust, then make sure you are trustworthy before you seek the trust of somebody else. Before you ask them to be trustworthy, you do it for yourself first. Do what you say you're going to do. That's what credibility is all about. Are you with me on this? Say, oh yeah! All right, so now let's move forward with the behaviors of Model the Way. First is set a personal example. It continues to come back to do what you say you're going to do. Great leaders have this trait that people like to follow them because they do what they say they're going to do. When the leader says, we're going to do this, we're going to meet at this certain time, this is the goal that we're aiming for, people like to follow that. And instead of saying, oh, you said this was our goal, but we're doing something different, or you said we're going to meet at this time, but you were 15 minutes late. It's hard to follow a leader who doesn't keep his word. It's hard to follow somebody who isn't clear on what her values are. So set a personal example. Second, align others with principles and standards. This means having the conversation with them too, that they're connecting with their values, their principles, their standards, what's important for them, what they will ultimately stand for. That's how I look at standards. Standards are what you'll stand for. Another behavior is follow through on those promises. Anytime you say, I will, that's a promise. Anytime you say, I commit, that's a promise. You may not be saying the word promise, but it's a promise. I've got 2 children, a 5.5-year-old son and a 3.5-year-old daughter. If I tell them I'm going to be home at 2 o'clock to hang out with them, they're waiting for me at 2 o'clock. They might not know what time it is, but they've been waiting for me all day, right? But then when I come home from work, or if I get out of the shower in the morning, whatever their expectation is, if I say I'm going to do something and I don't, it's going to break their heart because they look at it as a promise, and we should too. Another behavior is seek feedback about the impact of your actions. Check in and say, hey, how's it going? What's working? What's not working? I said I'm going to do this. Is it working for you? Do we need to change the commitment? How do we uphold that value better? Make sure people support common values. So if you've got an organization that you're running, you've got teams, you've got a relationship that you're a part of, in whatever way that you're leading. And if you're a part of a family, you can be leading in that family as well. If you're part of a team and you're not the leader, you can still be leading. Leadership comes from influence many times. So we ask this question, what are common values? Well, whatever team or group or relationship you're a part of, what's important to everyone collectively? Does everyone say showing up on time and having trust and decisiveness or loyalty or taking care of each other or achievement? What are those things? What are those common values? Let's keep moving towards those. And lastly is talk about values and principles. Make these conversations. Make this a thing that you're consciously discussing on purpose. Don't just say at the beginning of a year or the beginning of the semester or the first meeting that you're having, don't just say, all right, so here's what we say is important to us. Let's follow through. Go team. And then never revisit that conversation. That's not going to work. So let's make sure that we bring this all together. We set the example, align others with their own values, principles, standards. We follow through on the commitments that we make based on those values. We check in with others to see, hey, are we doing well? What's working? What's not working? Make sure that people support those common values. So not only what's working for me and what's not working, but what's working for all of us. What's not working? What do we need to improve on? Here's a great question. What should we continue, start, or stop doing? My wife and I have this conversation almost once a month, and we've been together for 12, 13 years now. Don't tell her I don't know the number, 12 or 13. It's close. But think about it. What can we continue, start, and stop doing? At Collegiate Empowerment, we do this about every month, if not even sooner. What can we continue doing? That's basically saying what's working well. What should we start doing? That's basically saying, what do we need to be doing that we've been procrastinating or we thought about or we said we're going to do, but we haven't done it yet? And then what should we stop doing is a very strong question. And it usually gets us to a great place if we let our egos aside. And then lastly, talk about it. Make sure you have this conversation. It's an okay thing to do. Are you with me on this? Say, oh yeah, come on, say oh yeah, say oh yeah. I know you're with me. All right, cool. So that is model the way. That is the first practice of 5. Now, each of these practices is sequential and simultaneous. So you can't just model the way once and say, all right, well, that's it. I don't have to do it anymore. No, it's something that we have to do consistently. We've got to do it over and over and over. Once we're able to model the way, then we can inspire a shared vision. And I'll see you in the next video for that one.